Hello, everyone. Happy last office hours of the year. Thanks for joining. While everyone's kind of trickling in, my icebreaker for the holidays, I'm crowdsourcing from all of you because I'm baking this weekend, is your favorite holiday cookie or holiday dessert. If you want to throw your name, where you're from, and your favorite holiday cookie or dessert in the chat. And we'll get started in just a few. I'll share. I think my favorite holiday cookie is a Linzer cookie, just so everyone knows. I feel like a little shortbread, a little jam on the inside, like big fan. Because Linzers are good, Francis. I know, they're great. No, all cookies, Cassie. I mean, you're right. But I'm baking this weekend, so I need your ideas. Iced sugar cookies. Okay, always a win. Nice and soft. Swedish. Oh, Morgan, I'll look out for my emails. Please send me your spice cookies. Bourbon balls and pecan pie. Good choice. A Twix cookie. Twix is my favorite Mars candy. It's a good one.
I love that there's no repeats.
Me too. I have a lot of cookies to make this weekend now.
Yeah, Mel, have at it.
Oops. Well, as everyone is again starting to get settled, let me just do a quick intro. So, of course, this is me going through things, spoiling some stuff. So, focus for today is designing training paths for role-based mastery. My name is Melanie, for those of you that are new to office hours. I've been with the Opus team for about 18 months now, and I head up our customer success team. Frances is also joining us today. She's our VP of Marketing and Success. She'll be manning the chat. And we are joined by Gretchen Bartkus. Gretchen, I'll let you do an intro.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Val, and good afternoon. Happy Friday, everybody. My name is Gretchen Bartkus. I'm the Chief People Officer at Haven Hot Chicken, and I've been with the company for coming up on 3 years. And my big focus and priority for the organization was not only just building out everything people, as I like to say, really looking at that full life cycle of managing people, but most recently in the past year, we've rebuilt all of our training, along with adding Opus as one of our tools that we use for training and development for all of our folks that work across our restaurants. So I'm excited to share some of our key learnings today and how we've leveraged the platform to really drive incremental growth across our teams.
Gretchen, we are so grateful you're joining us today. Thank you so much. And, so since we're talking about role-based training today, figured I would just do a quick poll for everyone on training modalities and your preferred training modalities based on preparing for role-based training. So kind of threw a couple in here. When you're leaning into role-based, I think I gave, I think you can choose up to 2 or 3 options here, but do you really like to lean into video training, on-the-job trainer checklist, classroom training, SOP documentation, reading, quizzing? Let us know sort of what you lean into for role-based training. It can also help us anchor what Gretchen will share as we go through Haven Hot's program. Ooh, okay, I see answers coming in. So on the job trainer checklist, obviously a big one, video training. And please go ahead and throw some ideas or some thoughts in the chat. For video training, is it like recipes? Is it role playing? What do you really lean into there? Quizzing, obviously, we talked a lot about assessments in November. You got to test and see how people are retaining the information that you're throwing at them. And also for those of you that answered others, would love to know what other is. Oh, Austin, thank you. Social learning coupled with, so very hands-on. Yep. Love that. Well, let's start by something that I really believe in as a instructional designer, which is, let's start with defining what mastery is. So here at Opus, one of our core values is actually 1% better every day. So the way that I would like to define mastery today is with the Japanese Kaizen approach, which is mastery is not a final destination, but the ongoing incremental process of getting better. And Gretchen, I really wanted to start here because I think the way that you approached Haven Hot Chicken, preparing to move to Opus, and all the strategic work you did really took this into consideration. So, my first question, and based on when we were chatting about before jumping on today, was I know you've restructured your entire org chart as a part of you joining the team.
Yes.
When you did that, you eliminated the $28 an hour shift supervisors. But how did you let your business model, high volume, fast casual, really influence how you wanted to structure the organization and then structure your training?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Mel. And so, at Haven Hot Chicken, one of the things that's great about the brand is they focus on doing chicken and doing chicken really well. So we have a very focused small menu. It's not very complex. We do, however, make everything in-house. So, it takes 3 days for somebody to make chicken, to get the perfect Nashville style fried chicken, because of the steps we take to get our signature crispy, crunchy, juicy, spicy, delicious is what we call it. So when we look at training for the organization and we look at the different roles and responsibilities across the org structure, we came to this realization that we had too many roles, and some of the most simple work was being done by the highest paid people in the restaurant. So for example, we had highly paid team leaders or shift supervisors, and they did prep all day. And so we had to have this reckoning and say, well, our current org structure is really heavy on labor, and it's sometimes a barrier to hitting our labor objectives and goals. So we took a step back and we looked at what are the different jobs in the restaurant, who should be doing those jobs, and then what are those new job descriptions, what is the right pay for the work, and then we decided on then what will we train them on, which allowed us to move into the new model we have today, where we have team members that are cross-trained to do all of the I call the entry-level work. So they do dishes, they do really simple prep, not complex prep, just very simple prep. And then they also work up front with the guests. So they work on the cash register, they do takeout orders, they hand off orders, and they pack orders. So it's really simple and streamlined. And then from there, when we look at that more advanced work, we jump into that role of the key holder. So the key holder is somebody that does require a very specific amount of experience working in a kitchen. And I call it the real prep. They're actually in the back in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, using a Robo-Coup. They're more competent with the skill set of somebody that actually cooks and prepares food. So, we stripped away a lot of the other roles and restructured it to have clear definitions. So we do have a team leader role, but that role is an entry-level manager position. People only move into that role if they have an interest of going into management someday. So it's a stepping stone. So that's allowed us to really streamline the work and the responsibilities, adjust our pay grades, and allow us to really focus on what are the skills for each role, and then how do we adequately support the financial model of the company with how we pay our teams for the work that they're doing.
So you really started with the structure, and I think this is something that stood out to me a lot, Gretchen, as I was diving into your dashboard and even working with you all when you first started with Opus in March, was how structured the Haven Hot Chicken program is, because of all of this sort of pre-strategic work that you did. And the culture setting before even bringing in a training program started with job descriptions, just making sure that you understood how you wanted people to flow through role progression. And then, I know you were on an LMS prior to Opus as well. So you had built this out on paper, if I remember correctly.
Yes, we did.
And so I think, the big call out here is not just your structure, but the culture setting element and your implementation approach as well. Before we dive into your 4-phase mastery journey, would love for you to share a little bit about the implementation approach that you took and how hands-on you all were with your store managers and just helping them to master a new skill of learning a mobile learning device for their teams.
Yeah. So when we implemented Opus into our teams, we also gave it a name, so it's personal. So we have our kind of branded name for our LMS, and we call it Heat Masters Academy, and the team loves it. And we call it HMA for short in our communications. And so when we talk about Heat Masters Academy, the team gets excited because it's more than just like, did you do your training? And we talk about it as a very valuable tool and resource so that they can work independently and become confident and competent faster than they would in the past. So when we look at our training for our teams, we have different phases and we have a very specific implementation approach of how we do the work with the team. But when we jumped into launching Opus, knowing we had 9 different restaurants to address, 9 different leaderships, teams with very different personalities, strengths, and growth opportunities across all the teams, which everybody has in their company. Instead of doing a huge company meeting and taking everybody in for half a day and doing it more typical, we decided to do scheduled in-store training visits. So we went into each restaurant with an intentional agenda. It was required for the AGM and the GM to participate. And we spent a solid 2 hours walking them through how to use the app, how to use the desktop version, and then how to use the new tools to support them. Because we have these new documents, they're training pathways, and there's one for each of the different job roles within the restaurant, so they understood how to do that work. So when do you log into Heat Masters Academy, sponsored by Opus? And then when do you jump into your stations and do that real hands-on shoulder-to-shoulder work where they're actually practicing what they learned through Opus? And so it was a tour. It took 2 weeks. We went to all the restaurants and we did that. So they got to play around with the app. They got to troubleshoot and they really enjoyed that experience. And then from there, the last phase of implementation was doing the same thing with all of the senior leadership team. So the CEO, the president, the financial team. So everybody that did not work in the stores had to go through the same experience. So we got buy-in at all levels. So imagine sitting in a conference room with the CEO, the chief information officer, our catering manager, our district manager, our operations manager, and sitting in there and just going through that same experience. And we assigned them training that they had to take as well. So they got to use it as our teams would in the stores and get that real world. This is what we've bought. This is what we invested in. And they could see how it feels and works for them as well, which was really great to get that buy-in across all levels.
One of my favorite things that you shared with me, Gretchen, was that you told all of your senior leadership and everyone above store level, hey, when you're in the restaurants and someone asks you, how do I find information or what's going on? How do I use Opus? You said you can actually just ask Opus itself. And I know Haven Hot, you guys have really, really leaned into Ask Opus. And I think you have one of our highest, you're one of our customers with the highest percentage of queries that come in on a weekly basis. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, because, we don't want to just give answers because then we're not teaching people how to function independently. So I always answer a question with a question. Mm-hmm. It's kind of my trademark and the teams know. Some of them will jokingly say, she's not going to tell you. So it's always like, hey, well, did you know you can ask Opus? Do you know how to do that? Yeah. Take out your phone, take out the iPad in the store, and let's look at it together. And we can show you how to use that feature if you don't know how to. And we tell them to ask them anything. How do I request PTO? Who are the founders? When was the first store opened? How many pickles go on a sandwich? Down to how do I chop lettuce? So It's everything for the company. It's not just training on how to make sandwiches. It's even down to, how to use your pH test strips to check your sanitization solution. So it's everything so that they have an expert at their fingertips who can answer their questions. It also helps with myth busting. If you're in a rapid growth company, standards and practices change quickly. So it's a really great way to myth bust when somebody's like, no, that thing gets 4 pickles. And somebody's like, no, we changed it 6 months ago, it gets 2 pickles. So it's great for things like that when they get into debates.
Yeah, and I know we're going to dive into sort of your philosophy in a moment, but with the paths that I wanted to pull up, and Kathleen, thanks for the shout out of how beautiful these are. I agree, these are gorgeous paths. I think the thing that I really want to highlight here is how, again, going back to your structure, Gretchen, how structured you all decided to make your training and have it be module by module based. I'm going to pull up another screen showing kind of into one of your modules in a moment, but can you just talk to why you took such a structured approach with your pathing?
Yeah, so one of the things we realized is if we want people to embrace and live our mission and values, we felt like the training should do exactly that. So one of the things is we wanted to make sure we explained to people how their role is important. It's not just about making a sandwich. How do they play a bigger role in the global view and supporting the company achieve its long-term goals? And so we felt like it was really important to have a specific experience for each person in their training, depending on what they were mastering. So we divided it up for team members. That's our entry-level position, where those individuals, everybody starts with orientation, right? You onboard, you do orientation, you learn about the mission, the values, our philanthropic efforts that we partake in. And so, you got to learn about the employee handbook, dress code, all those basic fun things. And then we jump into dish. Everybody at Haven Hot Chicken, the first thing they do is dishes. Everyone washes dishes. It doesn't matter what your title is. It's also, though, where we learn about workplace safety. It's where we also learn about food safety. So, we cover off all our OSHA requirements. So we go through that. But before you even start the dish training, the first course, it's a micro course, and it talks about, so what is the role of dish? And we talk about how important it is and how doing that role, you're embodying one of our 7 values. So we tie everything back to our values and how doing this role and mastering it is how you demonstrate you live the values of Haven Hot Chicken. So each one of our jobs starts off with a link to our mission and our values. And then we go into dish, and then we go into each of the different stations, and they graduate. So after they do a couple of shifts on dish, the manager has to do a check-in with them. They don't pass the check-in, they don't advance. They go back and they start all over again. Because we don't want somebody to keep moving forward if they're not ready to. We also give our managers that option if somebody's not demonstrating that they have the actual capability of grasping the concepts of the work, that maybe we didn't have a good hire and maybe we need to make other decisions and talk to the district manager about should the person stay on the team or not, because maybe we didn't pick the right person in the recruiting process, because we don't want to invest time and money and spend our training budgets when somebody can't advance and pass a skill check, because why would we waste that money and investment if somebody isn't going to make it? So it's a good, fair, consistent, non-biased way to really assess skill and see if somebody's ready to take it to the next position. Yeah.
When you structure your modules specifically, something that, again, I know there's some of your roles can have 26, 27, 30 modules within it. Is it really, the way that it stood out to me was all of your modules are very skill, knowledge, or culture based, right? You're not really doing it based on time. You're really focusing on an element of training. How do you communicate to the team members and to the trainers in the restaurant what the flow should look like?
So we have documents that are called training pathways, and it shows, so as a new hire over a 10-day training period, what your experience should be like. And this assumes you pass your check-ins. And it literally walks them through who is your trusted trainer or your certified manager trainer, if you're a manager that's hired at Haven Hot Chicken. And then it talks about on day 1, these are the modules that you're going to do in Heat Masters Academy. Once you complete these, then you get handed off to your trusted trainer, and your trusted trainer goes through and actually shows you how to do all that work that you learned about and engages it with you in discussion about the things that you learned in Heat Masters Academy. So if you learned about food safety, they're going to talk to you about food safety. If you learn how to build a sandwich, they're going to show you how to make a sandwich, and then you're going to practice making sandwiches as the tickets and the orders come in the kitchen. So, and it breaks it down every day what work they do. And it always starts when they clock in. They always start with, they log into Opus and they do what's pre-assigned. And then from there, then they go into the pod and they do that work hands-on, and they get dirty, as I like to say. Yeah.
And I know you, something that we talked about was every single day, every shift starts with clock in, connect with trainer, confirm yesterday's training, do your digital content.
Yes.
Why is it so important for that ritual of the day, like to get you started?
So one of the things we've learned, and our managers have been vulnerable and honest and shared this. They've had this moment of clarity where they're like, you know what, Gretchen, I followed the training plan to a T with my last new hire, and they were so much better at their job. And then they've also said, when I didn't plan it out correctly, one of the issues I had is I didn't have them do their digital training first, and then we were in the pod, and then it got really busy, or somebody was 20 minutes late to work, and so now we didn't do the work, and now they're behind. And we also know that no matter how good you are as a trainer, you're not going to remember everything that you need to talk about and educate your new hire on. Nobody's that great. There's so much information to share. So the value of doing the digital content is you're going to get at a bare minimum what you need to get to be successful in that job or task that you're learning. And so if your trainer forgets to tell or show you something, we feel confident they've got it in Opus. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. So really, it's not just defining that ritual of getting started with the trainer, but also with the managers and the
Yes.
Sorry, not just the trainee, but the trainer and the managers as well, and why it's so important. Really driving that home. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions for Gretchen about, again, sort of the strategy of getting started, but I would love to highlight next, Gretchen, the 4-phase mastery journey that you shared with me for the group here. And please, throw any questions in the chat. But I know phase 1 for you all is the understanding the learning phase. It's really what you call level 1, which I think is sort of what you've already alluded to, which is just the initial information, just getting you that initial information to get you to feel comfortable. Is that correct? Or is there any kind of thing else that sort of falls under?
Yeah, so we actually have what's called the phases of the phase. We call it, it's part of our life cycle of teams. And when we're coaching and developing individuals, we ask them, where do you identify yourself with your learning journey within your role? And there's 4 phases to it. So we have the learning phase, and that's where you're truly in training. You haven't even graduated yet. So you're just learning everything. You're doing your modules in Opus, the basic stuff. You're also working shoulder to shoulder in the pod with a trusted trainer. And that incremental labor is allocated to the stores to do that. Once you graduate, we move into what's called phase 2, which we lovingly refer to as refining. You've learned a lot. Now you have to get consistent at using that knowledge and get really good at it. So this is where we're challenging the individuals to internalize all this information in practice time and really get good at it and be consistent at it, so that I like to say they're the ninjas of their craft. So you're in that refining phase when you're working on being consistent and hitting the standard of work every single day. Once you are kind of at that point where you're consistent, that's where we say you're owning your role, where you come to work every day. You know all the tools and resources available to you. You can work autonomously. You can problem solve in the moment, and you can basically function independently. I lovingly call folks that are in this phase of their job my steady eddies, because they show up, they're reliable, they're consistent. They're the easiest people to schedule because they're cross-trained. They can do everything in the restaurant. They're your utility player on the baseball team. We love them. These are our favorite team members. For those that want to take on more responsibility, once they're in the owning phase and they say, hey, I want to be a key holder, I want to get a promotion at Haven Hot Chicken, what do I have to do? Then we're like, hey, now let's talk about giving you some stretch assignments. And this is when we're going to try to move you into what we call the advising phase. When you're in the advising phase, that's when we say you're ready for a promotion, because you've demonstrated you not only know the ins and outs of your work, but you're you're regarded as a trusted expert, not only by your peers, but by the manager. And when you come to the manager with problems, you also come with solutions. And you're looking to help your peers, you're looking to elevate the team, and you understand the bigger goals and objectives of the store, and you're thinking about more than just yourself. So when you're in that phase 4, level 4 advisory, that's when we would say you're ready to be viewed as for a promotion. And that's our kind of life cycle and where we track people's performance. And we have spreadsheets where we track everyone across the restaurants. We review them once a month. It's part of our succession planning as well.
So in terms of sort of time in each phase, if we kind of really dive into this, is the learning phase, I know your initial onboarding that you do for your hourly team members is roughly 2 weeks. Is the learning phase just those 2 weeks, or do you also see kind of some of their practice in that role, in that phase? Tell us a little bit about sort of time, how you approach the time frame for each of these.
Yeah. So, everyone has this perfect idea of how much time it should take, right? And you try to adjust and have a learning curve in there. But at the end of the day, we're all humans. Nobody's ever going to know the right amount of time it's going to take somebody to get through something. But as a business, you have a budget and you try to use that budget to the best of your ability. In all the training we've done in the past 3 years at Haven Hot Chicken, we really feel we've got a good grasp on how much time it should take somebody who's got some experience. Or somebody that's really, I like to say, you meet folks that they're upbeat, they've got a positive outlook, and they have a growth mindset, and they have some general understanding and desire to want to be successful. If you find those people, we'll invest and train them. Throughout that training period, whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, that's when we say you're in the learning phase. When you can pass your final check-in with your manager and you pass it, that's when you go to refining. So most people, it's about 10 shifts. If you're a team member, it's about 10. Some it might be 11 or 12. It just depends, because we do say to the managers, well, maybe they just need a little more practice, or maybe they learn better and they need to go back and watch some of the videos again. We say if the person's shown a lot of progress, we don't want to give up on people, because we believe we are competent to give people the skills they need. So if somebody needs an extra day or another shift, that's fine. So on average, though, it's about 10 to 15 days to get through all of the content. Yeah.
So you're giving yourself a time frame, but really it's about, can this person demonstrate a skill?
Yes.
And I think that again goes back to sort of your philosophy behind making sure that you had job descriptions for all your roles and making sure you understood sort of the organizational structure, right?
Yes.
So that it was less about just time-based, and I know that when you do reporting, you take that into consideration, time that it takes to complete. But really it's about, have they mastered the skill? And then are we assessing that skill appropriately?
Yes.
Nice. In terms of kind of that, okay, I know I just kind of debunked why time is important, but let's talk about, how does someone go from refining to owning? How do you know that they're your steady eddies?
Yeah. So, we like to say, there's some basic things everyone has to do, and everyone knows this, but I'm going to say it. And I like to call it like the ticket to entry. You got to come to work on time, in dress code, and with the right mindset, right? So that's step one, because that's a choice. You show up that way. And then we're there to support you with all the tools and resources, and a positive, safe work environment. But when you're in that refining phase, to get to that owning phase, it's really about the manager spending time with the individuals, which is where we use Opus. We have our quarterly development one-on-ones. So each quarter, the managers do a development one-on-one. And the way we have it set up in Opus, we've definitely used some of your technology to help us with this, which is fantastic. After somebody goes through their training and they've been with us for a full fiscal quarter, they have their first quarterly development one-on-one, and the system auto assigns them a course, how to prepare for your quarterly development one-on-one. It's a quick course, and it explains to the individuals how to prepare for it. It talks about doing some self-reflection, referring to our standards of excellence guide that talks about all the different roles, our core competencies, stretch assignments, and things like that. So it tells them to review that document. And then after they do that, it triggers the check-in for the manager to do. So it ends up in the manager's to-do list. So then the manager will do the check-in. And the manager actually we have the check-in set up where there's very specific areas where they have to type notes and what the next steps are. So we've definitely leveraged the check-in tool as a critical piece of tracking these development one-on-ones. Yeah.
And I know this is not your development one-on-one, but this just kind of showcases sort of that structure that you're talking about.
Yes.
This is specifically, I think, one of your guest experience trainings. I saw that it was titled being unreasonable. So I'm assuming there's an element here from unreasonable hospitality that you pulled in, and then how you're really leaning into that check-in experience to really drive the dialogue, which I'm sure is also a way that you're training managers is how to have that dialogue as well. So just to kind of highlight how, all these, you have a lot of modules in these paths, but they're all very, very focused, right? It's very clear after someone completes this module what it is that they should be able to do in the restaurant. Moving into, I think, a little bit of the idea of that Kaizen approach of 1% better, but actually how you approached designing training within Opus. I'd love to talk a little bit about your build strategy. So I know your version 1 of building was very robust. It was all of these paths was actually your version 1, but know there's a version 2 coming. So can you tell us a little bit about how you made that decision of what was enough to roll out to your teams, and then what's next on the path of like the training that you're building out for V2s and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So we had a different LMS platform before. We stopped building it out because it was a little cumbersome. It was hard to use. It definitely required a certain level of expertise to build the content out, which we didn't have across our team. So when we went to Opus, we were already in the process of rebuilding our training, which was really great for us. And so by the time we started building out everything in Opus, we also knew our timelines because we had a very specific goal to hit and a deadline to support our oncoming franchisees. And then the other piece of it that was really important was we wanted to make sure it was easy and simple enough for our teams to use, but we were working on, I'll say we jokingly call it the analog version because it was on paper. So we had our analog version on paper that was soup to nuts. It was probably for team member training, an 80-page document of everything that had to go through. It was very lengthy. And so we were working behind the scenes on what are the components that are going to be digital, writing out the storyboard, writing the objectives, the quizzes. So we had a lot of this in process already. So once we actually got access and started building out Opus with all of our content or material, we had the framework and the structure already set up. So we just needed to learn how to make it fit into Opus as we learned how to use Opus. So, and we're really happy with the way it's turned out. For us personally, but we had job descriptions, we had an employee handbook, we had our team member training written, we had to write our objectives a little bit clearer, we had to write better quizzes, so there was work we still had to do, and then we had to design it and get it into Opus, which was a good experience. It was a really positive experience. We worked around the clock on it because we had aggressive timelines, but we decided, let's get some video content in there for the things that we know are very complex. And we're going to have to be okay with that. And then we're going to go back and we're going to add video later. So in our version 1 that we launched on September 1st, we were very happy with what we did, but we also knew the things were going to go back. And I call it zhuzhing up or making it a little better. And so we do have still a list of things we're going to enhance, particularly around adding more video in for some of the recipe builds and the prep. And then for our managers, putting in more videos of how to use some of our other tech platforms so that in absence of either myself or some of our other experts or an operations manager, our managers could log in and watch a video of how to process payroll or how to navigate the platform we use for our scheduling. So in having more video on that is where we're up leveling the content for our teams because that's something they're looking for. And then the other thing we're doing is And we're going to be doing all of our annual performance reviews in Opus as well. So that's another phase that we're adding in. So for all of our salaried managers, we do a year in review process. So we're going to be leveraging Opus to document and track that. And then we're also going to be building out what does continued growth look like? So how can we create some modules that are around giving stretch assignments? So for example, we have an assistant manager in a time limited assignment as a general manager right now. So we're stretching her so she can get that experience. But we don't really have anything in there that talks about stretch assignments or developing certain skills. That's not in any of our existing coursework now. So that is something that we're looking to build in the new year. And then one of the other big ones is our equipment maintenance program. So we, for Q1 of next year, we're planning on looking at doing video of cleaning and the maintenance of all the restaurant equipment, and then attaching those QR codes to the equipment. So as a manager, you can say, hey, you know what? I want you to clean the walk-in. Well, I never did it before. Well, great. You can scan that QR code. You can watch a video. It's going to show you. You can get started, and then I'll check in. So we're going to be leveraging the QR code feature a lot more in the new year with a lot of our equipment maintenance. Yeah.
Nice. So again, starting with what you were used to, which is you already had these sort of agendas, handbooks, all of that already written out.
Yes.
You were able to digitize what you could and then move into what's next. Your videos,
Yes.
the QR code, just-in-time training, all of those pieces. I think Francis had asked for some questions in the chat. We have one from Kelly. Are the managers the only designated trainers in your restaurant, or do you actually have a trainer program as well?
We do. We have a trainer program. So once somebody is in that advising phase of a certain position in the restaurant, they can become a trainer in that position.
Mhm.
So if they've mastered front of the house operations, they can become a certified trusted trainer and only teach those roles in the front of house, or conversely in the back of house. And it allows them to increase their wages while they're training as well. So it's a nice bump, and it gives them something different to do. So we do have a full blown up trusted trainer program, and we have a training path. So when they get permission to become a trusted trainer, they get assigned the trusted trainer coursework, and then they go through that in Opus. And then when they're done, they do a skill assessment where they're assigned and scheduled to train somebody on something. It could be an LTO, could be a recipe build, it could be anything. And then the GM does an observation, and we use the check-in tool in Opus for that observation, where they track and they go through and they answer. It's about 25 questions to make sure they're living and coaching and teaching using the format that we prescribe. Yeah.
How do you continue to get buy-in from you? Because again, these were programs that you had in place pre-Opus. How do you continue to get buy-in from your managers to do such diligent work? And then I'll jump into Kelly's second half of her question about valuable components of trainers. But like this is detailed. How are you getting that buy-in day in and day out?
So I think Haven Hot Chicken is blessed in a couple of ways. So, I say we're a small but mighty company. We have big dreams and goals here. So we want to behave like a Fortune 500 company because our goal is to become a very large, successful company. So we're building the structure today to be able to unlock that capability for us and already have it in place when we get there, and just constantly upgrade it as we go. So that's always been our mission from day one. So as I came into the company and with the founders, we decided we were going to build a company like we were already the Apple of the world, right? That's our goal, is build it big so we can grow big. So that's number one. And we're very fortunate. There is a lot of presence across our restaurants, from the executive team, the district manager. I visit the stores a lot. I did a post-implementation survey across the teams as well to find out how well they like the platform, what could we do better or different. And so we're highly visible. We also do we use a lot of the reporting in Opus. Every week there's a structured report that goes out, shows where everybody is. So we get buy-in pretty quickly. And I think it's because as a company, we follow up on things pretty quickly. So when we set the direction and we set our expectations, the teams are they know that Haven Hot Chicken, the bar is high. You've got to turn it around, and we expect that people deliver. And so I think just having presence in the restaurants, having support across the executive team, and it helps also that I'm on the executive team, right? And then I think the other piece is, we try to make it fun. So all of the video content and all of the photography in our training is our people. So I personally went around for a month from open to close, weekends, weekdays, photographing our team, doing the work. And so they love it when they're in there. I just met one of our new AGMs to check in on his training, was in the restaurant, and he goes, Gretchen, half the staff that works here in some of the training I did. I said, I know. I said, I did a lot of filming in this store. So they like it when they see themselves in it. And so I think it's because they also feel a part of it, because their pictures are in there. When I go in there and we're testing out a new recipe and we go in there to film, they'll say, oh, can I be in the next video? So there's a lot of engagement because they like to be a part of it. Yeah. And I think it's because as an organization, we offer full transparency. We don't hide anything either. So everybody kind of knows everything that's going on. So people want to be a part of it. And that's intentional by design. Yeah.
We have a question about how you're approaching the performance evaluations. Are you also kind of taking these performance evaluations and putting them into your HRIS, or is this really are your evaluations really meant for team development and training, so you're keeping them separately in your LMS?
Yep. So all of the check-ins they stay, and the quarterly development one-on-ones, they stay in Opus. The new year in review process, our current HRS system doesn't allow us to do that. It's not as robust as we would like it to be. However, we feel like with Opus's reporting structure and our capability to track that information, it's a good resource and a tool to use where we're at for today. So we like that because it's easy to build, it's easy to track. We can pull reporting on it, and also the team members can actually see the information that their DM writes about them in their review, and they can provide feedback as well. So we like that. And so, there's a part of Haven Hot Chicken too. Our training is thorough and robust. But when we come to execute, we try to make things as easy as possible. Everyone across the senior leadership team, myself included, have worked for some really big, well-known brands. We know what it feels like to be stuck in a lot of corporate structure and red tape, and it feels like there's too much. So we try not to make too much. And I think everyone can appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think you're really leaning into our philosophy at Opus about check-ins, which is that it should be transparent. True learning is about people seeing the feedback that's being given to them, and also managers understanding how to give feedback. Right? It's so important. We talked about this, I know, last month when we were talking about assessments. But if people don't know how to give feedback and they don't know what the feedback is that they should be receiving, they're not going to grow. So we love that you've been really leaning into that specifically. I know we are coming up on time, and there's some really great sort of specific questions in here. Morgan, specifically about applying the Heatmasters Academy branding. The Haven Hot Chicken team actually just titled, instead of Haven Hot Chicken as the org name, Morgan, it's Heatmasters Academy in Opus. Yeah. So that is, just changing the name to that was actually something, very easy to do, but you don't even need your customer success manager to do that. That can be done on your own. And then a quick question about video and how you're approaching video capture. Are you just using your smartphone? Are you trying to keep it simple, or do you have a larger sort of production that you're putting together?
So we do a combination of both. So when it comes to our basic recipe builds, because it's super simple, my training coordinator just goes in and uses her iPhone. And we've practiced, so she knows she needs certain angles and height and lighting. We've been through this. She's been trained on it. So the really simple stuff, like when we're rolling out a new LTO, she does it. Our welcome video from our founders, though, our marketing team did all the filming and editing. Likewise, when we get into some of our frying of chicken, because the equipment we use is highly specialized. Again, we used our marketing team to actually film. Rob, one of our founders, who's also our chief quality officer, he talks about the equipment and how to use it and set it up and break it down. So depending on how long the content is, and if we need voice, and if we use our marketing team, if it's something really simple, my training coordinator does it on our iPhone. Yeah.
The classic, it depends. Sorry, Russell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like it's most of the things here that we're talking about today, right? It depends. And Gretchen, I think that's, my key takeaway from my conversation with you was you did the research at the beginning to really know why you wanted to take a structured approach to training, why you wanted to take a more like cross-training approach to the different roles instead of necessarily like a specialist until they were moving up, right? There was a lot of that strategy work and analysis work that took place to then get you to make the decisions that you decided to make, which I think is, go on those long walks and just kind of think. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Any other questions or any I don't know if anyone has any specific, thoughts or again, specific role-based mastery questions they'd love to ask Gretchen. I know we're just at time. I can never stick to our agenda though, as everyone is aware. But would love to just make sure and you can always send questions in to us and we're always happy to filter those across the board if we can. Oh, Francis, always with the hard hitters. What's the trickiest level to nail for you, Gretchen, and why? Level to nail.
I would say right now it's the advising phase, and it's because the majority of our managers, I would say 75% of our managers, they themselves are learning how to be developers of others. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So approaching it, I always think of manager training. I really think of it in three sort of key buckets, which is they're learning their roles, their tactical skills as a manager. They're learning the roles of the people that they manage, especially in a restaurant. And then they're also learning those leadership skills. And those are all three very different buckets.
They are
very different things to master over time. And that's sort of how I always think about I know when I was training at Hillstone, that was sort of how I was trained in those three buckets. And it sounds like that leadership bucket in and of itself is just, it's a beast. It really, truly is.
It is. And we're leaning into it really heavy. We just had a conference earlier this week on Tuesday with our entire store leadership teams to talk about, that life cycle of team and moving from, being a firefighter to really putting all their energy in developing their people. Yeah.
Yeah. Less reactive, more proactive, right?
Yes.
Since we are towards our end, I do just want to tee up some things going into next year. So everyone is aware we are going to be changing things up because we can't keep things the same here at Opus. Marsharell from the customer success team will actually be leading our Q1 office hours. I'm actually going out on maternity leave in Q1. So I unfortunately will not be joining our office hours. Yes, surprise. Our office hours for Q1, but you are in the best of hands. Marsharell has been with Opus for over 3 years now. I think a lot of you may have worked with her across the board at different times. And we have our loose agenda of focuses for next quarter, which are January, we'll be doing ops updates and newsletters. February, really focusing on back of house, or for those of you in the consumer services industry, like non-customer facing training structures, and then train the trainer programs. So this will be sort of our key focus in Q1. Please send ideas of more things you want to discuss in office hours. We really want to take into consideration what it is that you all want to chat about. We're also going to be changing up and doing 2 sessions a week. So for those of you that Fridays at 9/12, 9 East or 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern was too difficult. We're now going to have 2 sessions, so be on the lookout for that. And we're just excited to keep this going and keep this community, rocking into 2026.